so excited about today's topic, and I'm so excited about the guest that we have today. Today, we're talking about how to win. We're talking about how to win at life, how to win in relationships, all of that good stuff. And so, I have a question for you. My question for you is, what does winning look like to you? What does winning look like to you? And if you've never considered it, I want to hold space now for you to think about it. What does it look like? What would it look like for you to win in your own life? And I want you to put it in the chat even. What does winning look like for you? What does winning look like when other people say that you won't? What does winning look like in that respect? And I'll share what winning looks like for me. For me, winning means freedom. It means having the freedom and or ability to do what I want to when I want to. That's what it means to me. It's having the freedom and ability to go where I want to go when I want to go. It's having freedom physically, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, even. Financially, something that we don't really talk about and sometimes we don't want to own. But financial freedom is, I think, a virtuous desire as well. That is what winning looks like for me. It's even being emotionally independent to some extent, right? So being unbothered, knowing that everything is going to work out in the end and walking in that belief. That's what winning is, right? Also, for me, winning involves community because I don't feel like I can win unless my community is able to experience that same freedom, right? And just on that note, I want to encourage all of us to even say a prayer for the people of Ukraine and our brothers and sisters over there, many of whom are trying to get out, that God will show his hand in what's going on in Ukraine. Because again, we can't win unless we're all free. That's my definition of winning. And so again, I ask, what does winning look like for you? Because that's what we're talking about today. And I want you to hold on to that idea of winning while we share in this conversation with one of my favorite people in the world. Okay. So our guest today that's going to talk about how to win is my aunt, and one of my mentors. She knows what it's like to win, and we're going to glean so much wisdom from her. We're talking today to Daphne E. Jones. She is my uncle's wife, and for those of you who know my family, she's my Uncle Maxwell's wife. My Uncle Maxwell, I believe, I don't know if he's older than my dad or younger than my dad, but she's my father's brother's wife, Daphne. Daphne, and she has such an extensive bio. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. She's a seasoned executive with extensive experience in general management and in implementing digital technologies strategically, entrepreneurially, and globally. She has over 30 years of business experience and serving in executive level roles at IBM, Johnson & Johnson, Hospira, which is now Pfizer. We all know Pfizer, and General Electric. During her tenure at GE, she served as Senior Vice President for Future of Work and Chief Information Officer. She ran IT for $13 billion, billion with a B, $13 billion of GE healthcare businesses of product engineering, imaging, imaging, and ultrasound and global services. So currently, Daphne serves on the board of directors for a number of different corporations. This is what she's doing while she's retired, quote unquote. She's received multiple awards, including being named one of Illinois' most powerful and influential women by the National Diversity Council. In the fall of 2020, McGraw-Hill will be releasing her first book, How to Win When Others Say You Won't. It's a book for leaders that, among other things, will reflect on her story of going from poverty to being one of the world's most sought out executive leaders. And so now I will bring on my aunt, my mentor, Daphne Jones. Hey, Daphne.
Hey,
Ah,
what's up? What's up?
what's up? It's so good to have you on. Thank you,
Thank
thank you, thank
you.
you.
Thank you. And by the way, Max is the younger brother.
Okay. Look, I'm glad you cleared that up because there would
Yeah.
have been some fighting there if you would have heard me say he was the older brother. So thank you.
Right. Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm so proud of you for stepping out, saying you're going to do something, proclaiming it, and then executing on it.
Thank you.
You may have been afraid, but nobody would know it. It's courage. God has lifted you up. So
Mm.
you're a blessing to people all over the country and maybe even the world.
I appreciate you so much, Daphne, and I look up to you so much when you think about Black girl magic and you think about girls running the world. I think that you serve as such an example and such a mentor to us all. So thank you for your 30 plus years of service. And I know you may say this, but I'm going to spoil it. Your ability to, as you've told me once, learn all you can, earn all you can, and return all you can. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I cannot wait to get into this conversation.
Thank you.
So my first question, of course, is what I ask everybody who comes on. Part of what we want to do is start seeing God outside of the four walls of church and really seeing God both within us and around us in our daily lives.
Yeah,
And so my question to you is, where have you seen God today or lately?
lately. Well, great question. I had the knowledge of that question because I saw your last show. So I'm like, wow, what a phenomenal question.
Mm,
To me, God is the original worker who works virtually, right?
mm,
He he works from home,
ah,
like many of us do, and he also works through others. And so when I think about where he is, palpable examples, he is in the creation and life of my two new grandchildren. I have a
yes.
7 week old and an 8 month old, two boys, one in London and one in New York. And so he's in my life. He is
Mm,
also in my business.
mhm.
He is helped me get awarded. My brand new company just got awarded 2 nights ago our first MSA, which is a master services agreement, and a
Yeah.
statement of work with a company whose market cap is $1 trillion. I can't say who it is,
Yeah.
uh, but it's a brand new company, and they signed with me. And I think lastly, he was in my healthcare. You may remember I had breast cancer, very
Mhm.
small, tiny, early caught. Thank God, but I had to go through radiation, and the radiation was near my heart. And I just
Mm,
got an echo done 2 weeks ago, which is some kind of a X-ray, if you will, to
yeah.
make sure that the heart was not damaged. And so I praise God that there was no radiation that came near or touched my heart. So
Mhm.
I could go on and on and on about His word.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it. I love it. And
That's
you
where
know
I'm
what?
saying.
Part of what I love about what you said is how you inserted God in your business. Because
Mm,
often I think what we're, brought up on and what we learn at church is that money is the root of all evil, right? Not necessarily the love of money. And I love how you talk about money and even God's desire for us not only to survive through this world, but to thrive in this world, and
yeah.
that includes having financially everything that you need, not just for you, but for other people. And
Yes.
wealth allows you to do that.
Absolutely. And wealth gives you the freedom that you want to have. And I always remember your father saying that you never want to live longer than your money.
Mm.
Now, I don't see anything wrong with being a Walmart greeter,
Of course.
but I don't want to do it when I'm 85 years old.
Right, right, right,
And sometimes when you don't, when you live longer than your money is around, you end up having to do those jobs that maybe younger people should be doing or you should not have to do. And
right.
so financial freedom is really super important. Then you can do even more of God's work.
Uh huh. So we're talking about winning tonight.
Yes.
right? We all want to be winners, and we all have our definition of what it means to win for us. So, how do you define winning? What does that mean for you?
Well, let me first define what I'll say are the characteristics of winning. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because number one, to your point, like you defined it, what it meant for you, it's very personal, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very much based on our individual context. I can't define your winning, nor can you define mine. And
Right.
you can have various levels of winning. You know, I always tell my son that 10 dimes make a dollar. And so there's micro wins,
Yep.
really tiny wins that you can have, and there's big wins. So 10 dimes make a dollar, and every dime is a small victory.
Yep.
And I'm not really referring to truly dimes, but little small victories,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have a dollar, or you could take 10 million large things that you have done
Yes.
and making it 20 million could be another. So that's one point. Number two, in my book, I talk about how winning is really continual. It's not a
Mm.
one-time thing. It's not a single transaction.
Right.
Winning is the art. When you win continually. That makes you a winner, and it makes you winning. And we hear the phrase continuous improvement. And we often think that only pertains to cars or refrigerators or maybe athletes who can
Right.
run longer or faster. But you can win. And when you win that one time, it's a signal to your competitors, a signal to you
Yes.
that you're a force to reckon with. And if you do
Mm-hmm.
it once, you could certainly do it again. So when you
Yes.
are winning, you're doing it continually. So winning is a continuous thing. And so I think the third point around characteristic is that winning has two sides, right? There's the competitor and you. And sometimes we are the competitor. We
Yes.
try to beat ourselves. We talk about this life as a game, the game called life. And so in games, there's opposition. Coke has Pepsi. Walmart has Target.
Mm-hmm.
Ford has GM. Walgreens has CVS. And in my case, I had the people in my various circumstances that were bringing, to me that opposing force. Here was me, and here was everybody else.
Yeah.
And they didn't expect much from me. In fact, they told me that I would not win. They told me that I should be a secretary and not
Mm-hmm.
try to go to college. So winning for me was trying to go against that opposition. So the
Yeah.
definition for Daphne winning is that positive outcome or achieving a personal mission that transforms. It may transform your
Uh,
career from director to vice president. It may transform your weight from size 18 to size 8 or from size 2 to 10. It
mm-hmm.
may transform you from being unemployed to being employed, from being afraid to speak to being a public speaker. But
Right.
someone or something has positively, hopefully, positively transformed. It could be yourself, your employer, your neighbor, your church, your
Mm-hmm.
city, your family. So it's about transformation. That's a huge part to me of winning, is a positive transformation where you've achieved your mission. Your mission is
Yes.
freedom. So that is winning for you. You want to
Uh-huh.
have freedom emotionally, intellectually, financially, etc. And that's your personal mission that you have set out for life. When you transform into that freedom, you have won.
Yes, I love that. I love so much of what you just said.
Mm,
One thing that I want to go back to is kind of your definition of winning, but as it relates to it being a continual thing, a
mhm,
continuous thing,
mhm.
right? It's not that you uh, win, achieve your goal one time, but it's something that you take baby steps to do. And what came to my mind was what that means when you quote unquote lose, right? Or even not even lose, but maybe not achieve the goal that you set forth,
Yeah.
right? The way that you kind of laid that out goes with something that I've heard before that really resonated with me, which is either you are succeeding or you are learning, right?
Mhm.
So you're never actually losing. You're never
Right.
actually
Right.
failing. Either you're winning or you're learning
Right.
for the next steps that you are going to take in order for you to be able to win next time.
That's exactly right. When you think about the athletes, Serena didn't win every match.
Right.
The Knicks, who's my husband's favorite team, they didn't win every basketball game, right? But what they do a lot of times is they look at the tapes. They look at the
Yeah.
tapes and see, well, how did my competitor, hit the racket, and how did I respond to that? And so
Right.
they learn from that failed match, and they say, well, I won't do it that way next time. I'm going to
Right.
do it differently. So they learn how to learn, and you kind of
Mm.
unlearn. There's you learn, you unlearn, and then you
Yes.
relearn, you relearn. So they're relearning a different way, a different approach for how to approach the ball, or how to do the loop de loops that a pilot might do. Whatever it is that. And you don't give up. That's the thing about learning, is if you don't look at it like losing, to you, it's a great point. If you look
Hmm.
at it as winning or learning,
Right.
then you don't give up, because that's why they have an eraser on the top of a pencil. You
Right.
erase that mistake and you keep moving. You
Right.
don't stop writing because you made a mistake. You don't stop typing because you just backspace and
Yeah.
erase that, and then you
That's
keep on
right.
moving forward because
I
you're
love that. I love that. You either you're learning, you're unlearning, and you're relearning.
right.
Ah, I love that. Um, so the book that you wrote, when they say they won't, why did you feel the need to write this book?
Wow. So it's a really personal story. And, imagine you're a high school junior and you've skipped first grade.
Mm-hmm.
So you're pretty smart. So you think, because your mom, from Jamaica, made you like go to the alley and grab 3 + 2 rocks. And if
Right.
you brought back anything but 5 rocks, she would then send you down to get the switch so she could
Mm.
beat your legs. So
Yep.
imagine having all that attention on you. So you go to your high school counselor, because they're paid to give you advice, and you're told that girls who look like you
Mm-hmm.
don't go to college and shouldn't go to college. In fact, he said, if you try to go to college, you won't get in. If you get
Wow.
in, you won't get out, meaning you won't graduate. You'll get out, but you'll be kicked out. And then if
Mm.
you do get out, you won't get a job. And so what if then in every walk of life you hear or experience the treatment from your boss or others that are in authority or that have the same sentiment? Well, that was me. And so you couple that with the fact that I am a maximizer. I took some tests to understand what my superpower is. And one of my
Yep.
superpowers is to always make something better. It's called being a maximizer. I want to maximize potential,
Right.
maximize performance, maximize things. So I had to find a way to maximize the number of women who may either silently or privately experience what I have experienced, so that they can know that there is a way to win in spite of the competition, or in spite of people telling them that they can't. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
did it. It's to help everybody learn, faster, be better, you know, be quicker, be more successful sooner in their life than I could. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping that the book will do that.
Right. Which speaks to your definition of a personal win, right? Which is transforming
Yes.
the lives of others.
Yeah. Yeah. I speak truth to power. So, I have CEOs and others in the C-suite that I talk to, and I don't tell them what to do, because boards don't do that, but I ask questions and make suggestions. So I speak truth to the power at the top, but I
Right.
also empower those people, women especially, and people of color especially, who are overlooked, undervalued, and
Mm-hmm.
underappreciated, so they too can feel the power of being able to do their thing. So I kind of have as a personal mission to speak to the top and speak to the bottom, if you will.
Right, right, right. No,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So we're going to get into the book a little bit. And we want to get into your story. You're going to dive a little deep into the strategy that you used to win in your life. But first, I want you to talk a little bit about your journey from being a secretary to a C suite executive
Mhm.
for a couple of Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, my parents, just like Max's and your dad's parents, were both from Jamaica, born and raised in Jamaica. And at one point, Jamaica was under the British rule.
Uh-huh.
They were owned by whatever the Queen of England. So my mom was very proud of that, and so she said, no patois, don't speak any broken English.
Oh,
Being you're not really Black, Daphne. You're British, and so that was tough for me because I went to school and I was called the N word.
yeah.
Go visiting girlfriends, whatever. That they would never say, "Oh, you're British," and so
Right.
it was
Right.
always
Of course.
sure. And so I went to the high school. I told you about, my counselor. So I did, and I became a secretary for Women's Day magazine. And I
Hmm.
think they still sell them in the grocery stores when
Yeah,
you're
they
checking.
do.
And so I was the secretary for the associate editor in Chicago. And I realized pretty quickly that I should not be a secretary, but I should have a secretary. And
Hmm.
so in spite of what my counselor said, I went and applied to Illinois State University. I didn't join my graduating team of, my high school graduation class because I was later, because I was being a secretary while they were in college.
Yeah.
But I went to Illinois State University and I graduated with my bachelor's degree in 3 years, and I
Mm,
instead of four, and I got my MBA in 1 year instead of two. And I
mm,
think the reason for that is, and it lives with me today, Tiffany, is that when somebody tells me that I can't do something,
yeah.
that has become the motivation for me.
Yep.
Well, what? Watch me.
Yep.
When everybody around me that is white or male, they drive a certain car, then I'm gonna drive that car. I'm not.
Hmm.
They will think, well, how could she afford that car, or whatever. But I
Yeah.
want them to not put me in give me a limit or give me a label. So, but
Yes.
I came at my career though. I joined IBM fresh out of college, and then I went from, as you said, to Johnson and Johnson and to Hospira and to GE. But I came at this from a position of weakness, not feeling like I was enough. I
Mm-hmm.
went into a STEM field, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and I learned how to code. I learned how to install technology. But
Mm-hmm.
that was a blessing, but it also wasn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
I was told I didn't belong. I certainly didn't look my age. I'm going to be on Medicare in about 2 weeks. So I'll be 65 on the 18th of March. So I
Yep.
never really looked my age, and people just didn't understand how could this little Black girl sneak up and become an executive director.
Yeah.
And so then I got married in 1980, and then had a beautiful son, Jared,
Yep.
and then got married again 25 years ago. So I've been married to your uncle for 25 years. But I realized what was important for me was, number one, the 5 F's. I got divorced before, and the 5 F's are your faith, your family, your fitness, your finances, and your furthering your career.
Yeah.
And I was just working in corporate America. I only cared about furthering my career. I didn't
Mm,
care enough about my husband. So, I've heard your dad talk about, sometimes people can be a public success and a private failure. And
yeah.
I didn't want to be that one. I didn't want to be one-dimensional winner. I wanted to be a multi-dimensional winner. So that's where the
Mm-hmm.
5 F's came from that you read about, in my book. But that was really important, making sure that I realized there's more to my life than just my career. God
Yeah.
gave me faith. God gave me my family. God gave me the increase, etc. And then I realized that having role models and mentors were important to me. And then later on, I came to realize that having coaches and sponsors were important too. And then
Mm-hmm.
lastly, it's about doing what you say. The Bible says, let your yea be yea and let your nay be nay. And so the audio, what people hear from you, has to match what people see you do, right?
Yeah.
And if you say, I'm going to do this by tomorrow or do this by next Thursday, and next Thursday comes and they
And
don't
it's
hear
not
from
done.
you and
Mm-hmm.
nothing happens, there's an integrity factor
Mm-hmm.
that ends up hurting you. And then all of a sudden your brand starts to slip. People
Yep.
say, well, Daphne will talk a good game, but she doesn't deliver. She doesn't come through. So
Mm-hmm.
your audio must always match your video. And I had
Mm.
to learn that and you kind of see that when you're walking around and you hear how people are getting promoted. You see what it takes to win. And in corporate America, sometimes you see, okay, I'm going to behave that way because that person's on their way up. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's how I became went from secretary to senior vice president
Mm-hmm.
and to the board. You do your job, you become the baddest at it, you learn the job, then you do the job, and then you transform the job. And anytime
Uh,
you do those things, you
Yeah.
can't help but win. You learn it, you
Yeah.
learn it as a baby, you don't know much. You got promoted to this new position. Well, you learn that position. Take your time, take 8 months, take 2 years,
Hmm.
learn it, then you do it. And then after you do it, you do your best to disrupt it and transform it so you leave it better than when you found it. And so those
Yeah.
are the tools that I had to use to win.
So you learn it, you do it, and then you transform it.
That's right.
I
That's right.
love it. I love it. You just talked about mentorship. You
Yeah.
talked about finding someone who is doing what you want to do and, you know, patterning yourself after them to some extent.
Yeah.
You talked about
Without
having
losing your authenticity.
without losing your yeah, that's what I mean, to some extent without losing your authenticity. You talked about having integrity, letting your yay be your yay and your nay be your nay. Even when you don't know that people are watching you, they are watching you. And none of these things, all that, those nuggets, none of them have even like gotten to your book yet. And so I I love this conversation. It's just nuggets everywhere. And
Yeah,
I want to
great
really
job.
focus on your book as well, because in the book, you lay out a method, the method that you used, and go into the steps that you took in order to win at life. And so I really want to go into that. There are 4 steps that you talk about in the book,
Yeah.
and I want to run through them quickly, and I don't want you to give too much away because, again, I want us to go, like, I want to encourage people to actually get the book and to sign up to learn more about it. But the first step in your method to winning is to reimagine. And so, could you talk a little bit about reimagining and what that means?
Yeah. So first of all, this book is about everyone who reads it needs to embrace the need for continuous improvement. As we talked about 10
Mm,
or 15 minutes ago,
yep.
you don't want to get better at something, then the book's not for you. If you want to
Ah,
maintain the status quo, you're not sick and tired yet of being sick and tired. If you're okay being sick and tired of, I had a boss who inherited me. He
yeah.
didn't hire me. The guy who hired me, left, and this guy inherited me. And
Ah,
I I got tired of dealing with him because he didn't really want me. He didn't
ah,
think he would win. And so I got sick and tired. I had to do something about that. So thinking about how do you change your life, it's about embracing the need for improvement. So what the first of being able to reimagine is about helping you be clear on who you are. Who are you?
yeah.
And what are you doing? And so many of us are doing things and we haven't become what we are here to be. So
Mm,
we're not human doings, Tiffany. We're human beings.
right.
Exactly what are we called on this earth to be? And so
Uh-huh.
reimagining who you are is really the first step in the book. And sometimes you may get different. You may be different. What you're doing is different than what you want to be. And there's
Huh.
conflict. And when you have that conflict, you are not performing at your best self. You
Right.
you get an ulcer or you're stressed out, your family feels it, something goes wrong. And so this first part of reimagining is reimagine your vision, reimagine what your purpose is and your values, and then understand what your superpowers are. What are you really
Yes.
good at? And
Yeah.
are you exercising those things that you are really good at, or are they on the shelf? And so reimagining is really about suspending disbelief. Because if you're going to put a goal out there, it can't be a goal that is just low hanging fruit that you could just do that with your eyes closed. It needs
Yeah.
to be a moonshot. It's got to be a 10x North Star up there. Some of these boys that are really young, they said, I want to be an NBA player. That's a great aspiration to have. Now they got to have a plan B
Right,
uh,
right, right.
because they may not make it. But saying they want to not just be a college player, they want to be in the NBA. That's an
Mhm.
example of a moonshot, right?
Yeah.
And they suspend disbelief. They never stop believing that they can't do it. And that is what reimagine is all about.
Got it. That reminds me actually of a conversation we had last time with Unitha Muhammad, who talked about the need for alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what, you saying, do what you are good at reminds me of. Align yourself with your gifts and your skills and your talents and your vision as much as possible. And, don't get me wrong, all of us aren't in a position right now to do that if there aren't necessarily, if there isn't work available that only allows us to focus on that.
Yeah, you
But
do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do.
yes,
And I think you're right. Not everybody can do what they want to do, but put a plan in place. It's like
exactly.
when like having a building fund for the church. The church cannot build that building tomorrow, so
Right.
we'll still praise and worship inside the current sanctuary.
Uh-huh.
But maybe in 2 years we'll raise up enough money, we'll get some grants, we'll get this and that, and then we'll start the building. So having a moon shot, we didn't go to the moon the minute John F. Kennedy said that we would. It took a little time,
Yeah.
right? So, but having, he without a vision will
Or
perish, right?
perish.
So
Right.
having that vision allows you something to look forward to spend. If there are people that could do Amway, I remember that Amway was the thing to do. And these folks were working Amway on weekends and at night while they still did their job daily. And if they were lucky or consistent enough, they got a chance to quit their job and then do
Yeah.
it full time. And then they became whatever, rich,
Uh-huh.
what have you. So it's the same kind of a thing. You can't do it right away, but put a plan in place, have a
Hmm.
destination.
Yes. Put a plan in place, have a destination, and find those periods where you can pick it up and actually
Yeah.
do it.
This book, I didn't do it in the last 3 months. I've been
Yeah.
working on it for like 4 years.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. The second step is to plan. And we're talking about having a plan in place. So let's transition to that step. What
yeah.
do you mean when you say to plan?
Well, the question is, and so I know where I want to go because I've reimagined. I don't want to go there. I want to go there. So the question is, how do I go there? What are
Right.
and you just brainstorm, what are all the things that I need to have, what I need to do to get there? Then you look at what are your strengths. There's something called SWOT, SWOT, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats.
Uh-huh.
So all of those things, two of them are going for you and two of them are going against you. So you think
Hmm.
about a headwind and a tailwind. When you're flying from east to west, you have a significant headwind. So the
Yeah.
plane will take longer to go from New York to California. Well, you got to factor that in when the pilots and the air traffic controllers are approving the plane to take off. Likewise, so that's going against you. But when you're going from west to east, there's tailwind that's kind of pushing the plane forward, right? So in life, we have those same things. There are things that'll push you forward and help you. You may know the mayor. You may
Ah,
be friends with the CEO.
yeah.
You may, have a great construction person in your family. That's
Yeah.
a strength or that's an opportunity, but there are things that could be going against you.
Yes.
So your plan has to be a risk adjusted plan that says these are all the things I need to do. These are when I need to do them. And you put it in an order of what do I need to start with
Yep.
in order to get started, and then what are the things that I need to end with. So so knowing that life will happen, your plan has to be agile. And because when we make plans, God laughs, as they say.
Yeah.
So you could put a plan in place, but something may happen. Your boss may quit. If your
Right.
boss quits, then you got to be ready to say, okay, he's quit, I'm just going to
Yeah.
add that new factor into my plan. And so that's what planning is all about. You got to, plan your work. Just like
Yeah. Plan your
Thanksgiving
work.
dinner. Thanksgiving dinner, you make a menu, right?
Right,
And
right, right.
and then you burn your turkey. And and what do you do then?
Oh
What do
my
you
gosh.
so
But Daphne, what that reminds me of, or what that brings to my mind, is the need for us to get comfortable with assessing where we are in life and what is in our lives. I love the illustration of the plane and how, if there's a headwind, something in your life may be stopping you from making the progress that you want to be making, and assessing that and being honest with that and saying, these things, these people, this even mindset is not helping me get to where I need to go
Right, right,
fast enough. So
right.
assessing that and doing what you have to do in
Yeah,
order to have a tailwind, which is to surround yourself with those things that are going to actually push you to where you need to be. But you
that's
have to
right.
be open, you have to be honest,
And real
and
with
you have to be
yourself.
willing to do the work.
Yes. I mean, when you think about your tribe,
Right.
people, they say that everyone that's in your circle may not be in your corner. So
Ah,
when you think about, Mike Tyson or Real Deal Holyfield,
yeah.
when they got cut, they had to go to their corner. And
Yeah.
if you don't have a good cut man in your corner, you may be bleeding for a long time. And so
Whew.
you got people who hang around you, they're in your circle, they're your boo, they're your girlfriend. But the minute that something goes wrong, where are they? Where they go?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to
Right.
know who's in your tribe, and they could be a threat. They could be threatened by you
Yeah.
because they want you to kind of be down there where they are. And so when I talk about planning, you've got to be open. That's what you're saying, and count the costs of having that person in your life. Is that
Right.
person going to benefit you, or is that person going to lift you up? And sometimes I have people in my life that they're not going to lift me up, but they become the reason why I exist, because I am there to speak truth to power. I'm
Right.
also there to empower those others that are underserved, undervalued, and I may not look at them as my peer. I may look at them as someone who I'm helping.
Yeah.
Got to be careful of who you have in your that's speaking into your life.
Mm-hmm.
They either have to have done it before, or they have to want to do it, and they have to be encouraging to you. So that's sort of what, when I talk about a risk adjusted plan, means you have to assume that not everything will go perfect. I had
Right.
breast cancer. I had breast cancer in the
Right.
middle
Right.
of, and I was interviewing publishers that several of them wanted to, publish my book. And I was sitting at the doctor's office and I was doing an interview. But this
Wow.
book was delayed by about 4 or 5 months because
Mm-hmm.
of that. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to have a plan, and then you have to risk adjust it. And sometimes you just gotta, wait your turn.
Right. Right.
That
So
helps
that was
out.
number two, plan. Number three, the third step is to execute.
Execute. Yeah. That just means work your plan. So you planned your work, and now it's time to work it. And while you're working it, things won't go perfectly either.
Right.
And that's when you get your sponsors, your mentors. You like, you know what? This happened to me in my meeting. I did a presentation and they laughed me out the room, or they didn't accept
Yeah.
it, or whatever. And you go to your tribe. And there are times when you have to either pivot or you persevere. You realize that there's enough information. I'm doing pretty good. I
Yeah.
thought I was going to be at this level. I thought I was going to have great, results in my territory. I'm making my sales numbers, whatever success may look like, and you persevere. You keep going. But there are times when what you assumed was going to happen didn't happen, and you may have to pivot. And there's
Yeah.
power in your pivot. There's power. It doesn't
There's
mean you
power
stop.
in your pivot.
There's
Yes.
no power if you quit. No
Right.
power. So
Right.
I'm not saying, keep on going even though you're going to run into a brick wall. No, you pivot from that wall and you find a way to go around it, another
Mm-hmm.
way to hit and achieve your destination. So
Mm.
you persevere. And, what do they say to when people try to bury you? You have to remember that you're a
You are
seed.
a seed. That's
Yes.
right.
And what do seeds do? They go down into the soil, they
That's right.
find their tribe, they
That's
find
right.
the dirt, they find the silt, and all
Yep.
of a sudden they get their seed legs, and then they raise up above the dirt and they
That's
say,
right. And then they
man,
bloom.
boom. And then they throw shade like this tree
They
behind me.
throw
They
shade.
throw shade, and they also produce fruit,
That's
because
right.
you can't just be somebody who throws shade. You also have to be that person that delivers value, because you were
Yes.
down there under the dirt getting intelligent. You were reading stuff, you were praying, you were doing things that made you stronger. And when you come up, you are now an example for others to follow.
You're blooming.
They're blooming. Absolutely right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
The last one is transform.
Yeah. So part of the process is when you are winning, you have transformed your capability, you've transformed your child's ability to do better in school, whatever your
Yeah.
vision is. You were what you were yesterday, you're not that today, and you're going to be
Mm,
even different tomorrow. So you transform, people's perception of you, you transform your skill. With my book, I assume that you're going to have the will set, and then from that will set, you're going to be open to having an open mindset. And the tools that are inside the book are the tool sets. When you use these tool sets, you will then have transformed skill sets that will be used over and over and
that's
over so
right.
you can win continually. Not just for
Exactly.
one win, but to create a winning life. And so the
Yeah.
transformation happens over and over and over again. It might be a mini, we call them mini transformations, or it can be a macro transformation.
Right.
But when you look at the iPhone started out at iOS 1.0. Now it's at iOS 15.3. The
Yeah.
iOS transformed what we think a phone should do, and it transformed our productivity and things like that.
Hmm.
So they win every time they get a new version. Hopefully, there's times there's cyber crimes that happen, but as they go from version to version, like we will go from version one of ourselves to version two of ourselves
That's
to
right.
version three, we're continually winning either in a micro way or in a macro way.
That's right. It reminds me of something that someone once said, which was, the only person that I'm competing with is me,
Yes,
right? And
yes,
every day I want to be a better version of myself,
yes,
right? Another iteration of
yes,
me. I am just
yes.
getting better and better and better.
Yeah, I told my son, he would get a 70 on a test. I said, don't worry about those that got a 95. Just beat that 70. Next time,
Exactly.
get a 73.
Yeah,
And you get that, then get a 78 or
that's
whatever. But
right.
always beat yourself. Find a way to, achieve, to that higher level.
Because it's not about other people at the
It's
end of the
not.
day. And it's so easy to get caught up looking at what other people are doing and comparing yourself to other people. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's about making progress in your own life. And I know that
Yeah.
we even mentioned, coming up and, allowing for shade, right? We said throwing shade, but actually allowing for shade, right? Because we don't have anybody to shade because it's not
Yes.
about anyone else.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. And
And-
so, yeah, it's a great point.
yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
And so you just went over a process that goes from reimagining the life that you want to actually transforming into the person that is living that life.
That's right.
But no process is as easy as it seems,
Hmm.
right? Like we can say this, we can present it. I think you so magnificently laid out a great process, but there are going to be challenges while people are going through the process.
Hmm.
And so, what do we do when we come across challenges? How do you stay motivated while you're in process?
Yeah. It's really a mindset. So there's thoughts. There's the TAR methodology that I mentioned in the book. Thoughts, actions, results. TAR.
Mm,
Your thoughts drive what you do,
yeah.
your actions, and your actions create results. And so you have to say to yourself that the outcome or the purpose that I'm going after is greater than the pain. And I did an
Mm,
Instagram post. My daughter-in-law, who's in London right now, she went through 24 hours of labor,
mm.
but she
Jeez
couldn't.
Louise.
She couldn't get right. Right? She couldn't give up
Uh-uh.
because the outcome of having that beautiful baby Mars was more important than the pain that she was in. Now, I'm not
Right.
saying that she had a choice, she had to give birth, but there are all of us who have a choice as to whether we're going to stop or we're going to go. And
Right.
not to say Serena doesn't win every match. When we
Hmm.
get a cold and have to stay in bed, do we remain in bed for the rest of our lives? Right?
Right.
Do we give up driving because we got lost? You know, sometimes you get lost when you're driving. No, we
Right.
turn on the GPS or we ask somebody for help
Yep.
because the destination of where we're driving to is much more important than the fact that we got lost for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. My friend
Yeah.
Willie Jolly says that a setback is a setup for a comeback. So you have
That's
to keep
right.
your mind, let this mind be in you.
That's
Because if
right.
this mind is in you, then you'll act that way. And then
Uh-huh.
the results will come back and reward you for having that action. And if
Yes.
you don't like the results you're getting, you got to change how you think. If you give up every time that you encounter something difficult,
Mm-hmm.
you'll never get anywhere. So if you don't like the fact that you're not getting anywhere, you got to change how you think. Seek your help from your tribe. And my
Yeah.
book, talks about what do you do when your measurements aren't going their way. And so one of
Mm-hmm.
those things that you do is your tribe. No one of us have done anything by ourselves.
Right.
This blouse that I'm wearing, I didn't make it.
Yeah.
The computer, I didn't make. I don't. The house I live in, I didn't build it. So
Right.
nothing that we do has been done by ourselves. So when we are going through trials and tribulations, always seek your tribe.
That's right. That's right. That's good. How do you prepare to win? How do you prepare to start the process that you just laid out, knowing that challenges are going to come, knowing that everything isn't going to be perfect, knowing that you may have to pivot? How do you even start? How do you prepare for the journey?
Well, you first need a reason. You need a reason to believe, and you need a reason to suspend or cancel the disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just try to get started, you will be well intentioned but misdirected, because you'll be going anywhere. Any road will do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't know the
Right.
destination. You have to start with, what is it that I want to do? Who is it that I want to be?
Yes.
How much better do I want to become? And so when you have that purpose, there's a book called The Purpose Driven Life.
Right.
That's what should drive you. And then when you have a purpose, then you do your research and you say, well, how can I cook a great Thanksgiving dinner? You start Googling Thanksgiving dinners.
Right.
Or how can I be a better speaker? You start
Uh-huh.
Googling, how can I be a better speaker? So first you have to have the idea in your mind. So it's the will set, the mindset, and then through your research you will get the tools that you need, and then you will have those skills. But you first have to define your moonshot. You first have to set up your North Star. Where is my
Mm-hmm.
destination? Because without a destination, without a vision,
The
as the word will
people
say,
perish.
people
Right.
will perish. They will go around in the wilderness for 40 years, even though it's only about a 10
Ah,
mile.
when I think about that story, that always gets me
I know.
to to understand that, to realize that the children of Israel were wandering the desert for 40 years when the promised land was like 3 days away,
Yeah, I
something
can't
like that.
remember. Yeah.
And, and for me, that speaks to something that was also mentioned, I believe it was last week, which was understanding the mind of Christ and what God has for you, right? What
Yes.
God has, the vision that God has for you, and being in alignment with what God has, even before you start the journey, is what
Yeah.
I hear you saying.
Yes, exactly. My husband always would say, "What's for you can't be on for you." Right? And that's
Yes,
my patois. So what's for you, what is for you, what God has for you cannot be not for you.
it cannot be
Because
not
He can never
for
lie.
you. Ooh,
Yeah,
that's a word.
that's the word. What's for you can't be on for you.
That's good. Now, another thing that's fascinating about you to me is the work that you do on boards. You sit on 3 different boards
Mhm.
while being retired. You retired. When did you retire, Daphne?
In 2017.
In 2017, you retired.
Yeah.
but you're still pulling at least $500,000 doing board work. And let me tell you what's funny about that to me. What's funny about that to me, and I think it happened, I remember a conversation we had when you first told me about the board work that you're doing. Because me growing up in church and in education, you mentioned, you know, I want to continue earning by sitting on boards. And I was like, "Oh, okay, tell me more." And you were like, "Yeah, I sit on boards of companies." And when you said that, my mind immediately went to like a church board or like a
Uh,
nonprofit board.
mm,
But then you were like, "Yeah, I'm going to sit on these boards and I'm going to earn, and my goal is to get like 200,000 a board." And I was like, "What?" Like, come again? You're getting paid to sit on
what church
boards?
is
What
going
are
to do
you
that?
talking about? We're talking about nonprofit, right? And you were like, "No, I plan to earn, 200,000 sitting on boards, and I want to do like 3 boards a year." And I just, like, my mind was blown. And so I want you to talk a little bit about the work that you do sitting on boards, because I think that, and I could be wrong, but I think a lot of people are like me. And when you think about sitting on boards, you're not necessarily thinking about corporate boards.
Right.
How did you start doing that work?
Well, you first have to be good and be the baddest person around.
Mm-hmm.
You got to learn, do, and transform. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was a chief information officer. If I was not any good, they wouldn't want me. So you have to be good. You have to be in demand. You have to have the talent that companies want. So right now, because in my case, now somebody could be in marketing, somebody could be in HR, somebody could be a CEO, a finance officer. Boards need all of those skills because all of those skills are in the management team of those companies.
Right.
You need somebody or somebodies who understands at least what one of those C-suite people do. So I am a technologist by training, and so, whether it be cybersecurity, digital transformation, artificial intelligence, whatever it is, my superpower from a business skills perspective is that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to be good at doing that when I was in corporate America, right? And then you say I had to present to boards. I remember walking into a boardroom, Tiffany, and they would say, "Shh, come on in." They
Yeah.
were whispering like, "Shh, just sit over there, just be quiet."
Right.
And I'm like, who are these people? And why do I have to be so quiet? And
Right.
they looked smart, they were intimidating, and they were all white at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and very few women, and all that. So I said, you know what? Their questions weren't that amazing. You
Right.
so I can do that job. And oftentimes, CEOs that are white, they get people to join their boards who look like them, who golfs with them, and whose child went to private school with their children. And so
Right.
the board becomes homogenous, all
Yeah.
white men. And so I said, okay, here I go again. When they tell me that I can't, or when nobody, it looks like I won't fit, I
Yeah.
think I'll join the board. So you first have to, then you start doing the research. You start doing the research. You join organizations that promote that thing. And I would say you pick your favorite company, pick Coca-Cola, pick Porsche, pick whoever, and read their annual report, read their
Mm.
quarterly report, read what the analysts on Wall Street are saying about them, learn the company, learn the language of the business, and understand what boards do. And so when you understand what boards do, which the CEO reports to me, to the board. There's 9 of us on the board, not just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
CEO reports to the board. The board reports to the shareholders, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you buy stock, enough stock of a company, the board, me, reports to the shareholders. And of course, people below the CEO are the chief information officer, the chief HR officer, the chief legal officer, et cetera. So that's the people that run the company. And so learn
Mhm.
what boards do. And what boards do is to ask questions and govern, make sure the CEO and his or her team are doing the best they can possibly do. Because at the end of the day, shareholders give the companies money. Every time you buy a share of Apple, every time you buy a share of Disney stock, you are loaning, if you will, money to the company to
Right.
invest in R&D and to invest in other things. And so the shareholder has to be happy. And so if the company's not doing a good job making money and raising money to give back dividends or repurchasing of stock, the shareholders are going to take their money and sell their stock and walk and invest in somebody else. So the board's job is to make sure the CEO and his or her team are doing a good job and making sure because of that, the shareholders are happy. We're doing things right for the environment, that we're driving diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
We're doing things for the community. We're having equitable pay and
Hmm.
things like that for people of color or whatnot. So how do you do it? Learn about a board, read your favorite company, read an annual report, and
Yeah.
then be the best you can be so that
That's
you are
right.
independent. Your dad always says that you cannot make demands until you are in
In
demand.
demand. So
So you
put
got
yourself
to
in demand.
and know that you are enough
Yeah.
because we are not taught that we're enough.
That's right.
I was taught that I
That's
was
right.
never enough. And
Hmm.
you are more than enough because you have a superpower that no one else has.
Nobody else has it.
No one else. And so don't rob the world of your power that you have to make a difference because no one else has your fingerprints, no one else has your DNA, and
Yeah.
no one else has your gift.
That's right. Nobody can do what you do like you do it.
That's
Period.
right.
My
Period.
rich auntie, rich in wisdom and knowledge and nuggets. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you so much.
I
We
appreciate
covered a lot in this conversation. What is the one thing, if nobody takes anything away about winning, what is the one thing that you want them to take away from this conversation?
there is no transformation without reimagination. The
Ah,
word says, be ye transformed. That's the word. Word says,
right,
be ye transformed.
right.
How? By the renewing of your
Of your
mind.
mind. Yes,
So refresh, renew, and reimagine what is good and is perfect and is of good report. And if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things and
yes.
not on things of old.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank
Now, the
you.
last question that I want to ask before we tell everyone where they can find you is one that I ask all of my guests. And that is in life and through your experiences, what is it that nobody can make you doubt? What is it that you know for sure? It can be about God, it can be about winning, it can be about life. What is one thing that nobody can make you doubt?
That one thing is that faith can move mountains.
Ah,
And because God works through us, we can move those mountains too.
amen. Amen. Powerful closing words. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now, of course, tell everyone where they can find you if they want to be put on an email list or just keep up with you and know when the book is dropped. The book is dropping in the fall of 2022, but in order to stay up with you, where can people go?
Well, they can find me on Instagram, first of all, just to see what I'm up to and some of my quotes that I try to drop every once in a while. It's Destiny's Door on IG or Daphne Jones Official, because I have two different places. My website, which is not as up to date as it could be, but it's daphneejones.com, www.daphneejones.com.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna close us out. Um, Everyone, thank you so much for joining. As I knew it was going to be, it was a powerful, powerful conversation. If you know someone who can learn from this conversation more about how to win, be sure to share it or tag them in it. And be sure to follow Daphne. She is a powerful woman, and you will just do nothing but learn from her. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful night.